Pretty much, it's about the reefs here in the Philippines, and that since the lockdown ended, uh, I live on a street where once, when I first moved here, in one day, maybe in 2 days, one vehicle would pull up to the dead end in front of my house, this dead end over here. Maybe one in the entire day would pull up right here, and they would park the vehicle right there and go to the water. Then, of course, we had the lockdown, and there was no vehicles and no boats in the harbor. And when I first moved here, there was a fellow named Jonas that had a boat that came from another part of the world that parked out there, and about 4 dive boats between a 12 and 24 passenger. So there might have been 9 boats in the harbor, maybe not. And the rest were small fishing boats, little pump boats, where men go out at night and they throw the line overboard. Since then, the lockdown occurred and there were no boats on the shore. However, 12 boats, as much as 30 passengers, could be 30 passenger boats, 12 of those parked on this beach here in front of the house because they were not allowed to go out during the lockdown. That 12 boats to the right side of the path, and maybe 3 boats to the left side of the path on a half a mile of beach, 15 boats. And then in the harbor, about 4 boats. So altogether, less than 20 boats were parked here during the lockdown, but none of them were used. They maintained the captain, they maintained starting the motor, I guess. I don't know what they did for maintenance, but there were about 19 boats. And what they did, now I'm going to tell you what they did, which will totally... The boats on the beach tied 1.5 inch line to the coconut trees instead of putting an anchor out, which would not hold the boat during a storm. And the wind, when it comes from the island side of the beach, pushes the boat out towards the ocean. When it comes from the ocean, it pushes it on the beach. So they had an anchor in the back of the boat for ocean wind, and then they tied the front of the boat onto the coconut trees. Now, what happens during a storm, if the weather is blowing from the ocean, it blows the boat on the beach. But if the wind is coming, the storms tend to be in circles. So for half the storm, the wind is coming from the ocean, and for half the storm, the wind is coming from the land. Well, when the wind is coming from the land, it pushes the boat out towards the ocean, and the line that's wrapped around the tree tugs it a little bit, pulls it just a little bit towards the ocean, and the tree just goes like that, the rope. But when you do that 15,000 times over the course of 3 or 4 days, the trees along the front of the beach went from being vertical like that, and the rope started to pull them over. After 3 years, 2.5 years of being beached, and then rain during the hurricanes or cyclones, and then wind and rain during the non-cyclone parts, the trees continuously went like this, to where 8 out of the 12 trees that were along the beach fell down into the water. This is the concept of this video. Environmental protection, so to speak. Now, in America, and I know we're not in America, there would have been someone overseeing the trees falling down into the water. That would have been the job of the Coast Guard, or what they call the DNR, or the Marine Patrol. And they would come and they walk along the beach, ride along the beach in boats or go-karts or in their trucks, and they would see this happening, and then they would just say to the owners of the boats, set up a dead man on shore made out of concrete, or put out an anchor far up on shore. But none of that happened. So we lost 8 coconut trees 75 feet tall. They're gone. And eventually they just fell into the water, and that was it. They're gone. But no one ever replaced the trees as seedlings or baby coconut trees. None of that happened. So they allowed the trees to be gone, and there's no environmental impact study done on this. And that happened all along all the beaches, wherever there were coconut trees, on all the islands, in all of Bohol, and all of the Philippines in general. I've seen this many places that I visited over the last year or so. If you look, and you know what you're looking for, you're looking at a down coconut tree about 50 feet in offshore. That's why it happened. In Alona Beach, all the trees, all the coconut trees are gone. All of them. There might be one left out of 35 trees that were there a few years ago, because the same thing occurred there. So my point is that the dive centers, the people who own the dive boats, they train for Naui or Patty properly. I've seen their training programs, but environmentally, they don't have any kind of stringent regulations on them. So right now, there's about, I counted roughly 600 people diving last Sunday, okay, because this weather's not so good today because of Cyclone Betty, but about 600 people went to, and this is just one place that they drop people off. They drop people off at Momo Beach, but probably only 1/3 the amount. They drop people off in Alona Beach, and that's why they're coming here, because Alona Beach is so crowded, they don't have any more room for boats on Alona Beach, and they drop people off behind the church in Poblacion. So there's 4 destinations that they drop people off. They drop them off down by the Bellevue, by the Moro Army. That's 1. They drop them off here in BOHOL Beach. That's 2. Momo Beach is 3. Alona Beach is 4. And then behind the church is 5. So there are basically several thousand people a day using using what little resources the Philippines have, and they don't have much. Okay, there doesn't seem to be any environmental consequences for damage done by not just divers, because this has been going on since the year I got here in 2014. Hello, Bill. Let me open up my page. I see someone said hello. Let's go over here. Let's go over here. Let's go over here. Let's go over here. And then I'll look at the chat. Hello, Bill. Thanks for stopping by. So there is absolutely, from what I have seen, and I know. Okay, thank you, Bill. I know environmental protection agency laws and rules in America because, first of all, I lived on the water, but secondly, I, I, I had an excavation company, so you had to learn about what you could excavate, what you couldn't excavate, how far back from the shoreline, if you had to set up a boom to put in a riprap wall or pour concrete on a riprap wall. And then, but more than that, I had a marine construction company for better than 15 years. So I dealt with the environmentalists, what you call the DNR, what I call the Marine Patrol, and what is known in New York City as, what was the name? It was, they had a different name than the DNR, but it was basically a federally operated organization that oversaw all permits. So when I had to put a stick in the water, a pole, I needed to get a permit. When I had to put a set of docks in, I had to show the square footage of the land, the length of the face of the property, and then the square footage of the property. And in relationship, where was I going to put these docks in relationship to the dredged canal, if there was a dredging section of the canal, if it was dredged out. You had to fill out an application, and an architect had to put the application in for you. And that would cost somewhere about $1,800 to $4,000 for one permit to put a dock or a bulkhead in. Either way, they charged about $1,500 to $4,000. $1,500 for a pole. The pole didn't cost $400. You only got $500 to put it in, maybe $600. That was $1,000. It cost $1,500 for the permit. But that's just the way it was. But in the same regard, they're protecting what is called the coral zone, CORAL. And if you broke a rule, if you put a pole in without a permit, just one pole, even if you dug the hole by hand, you went on the beach at night, 3 guys, dug a hole, put a pole in, and if someone saw you do it, now, it never happened with me. I never did it at night. I did it in the daytime. And someone saw me dig a hole with a couple of my men because the barge wouldn't fit down that part of the canal. We only dug a hole with a shovel about 3 feet deep, about the size of a 55-gallon drum. That was a $5,000 fine that I had to pay I'll remember the Department of something for New York City, the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection. I had to pay a $5,000 fine with the understanding that the person who gave me the fine, they called me in, they subpoenaed me into court on a certain day. I went to the DEP, it's in Long Island City, New York. The person who issued the summons was a DEP agent. He was my judge, but there was 6 other people at the table, Department of Environmental Protection Agency. So the person who gave me the fine, this way, I couldn't argue the point. I couldn't say, well, the agent that gave me the fine didn't know what he's talking about. That agent is at the table. So when I went before the hearing, all that bologna and cheese, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, understanding under the penalty of law, blah, blah, blah. So I'm thinking to myself, well, how much could they charge me for this? The fine was $50,000 to put one pole in, to dig a hole by hand, $50,000. $50,000. And that had to be paid if I wanted to fight the case somehow. I could prove it wasn't me who dug the hole, but it was. They caught me digging the hole. It would be, if I fought the case, the fine would be $50,000 plus the salaries of the people that were appearing at that table. For however long the case took, I would have to pay their salary and their benefit fund. Or the other option was to just cut them a check or pay them cash right there at the table. Just write them out a check for $5,000 and say you were sorry. So I wrote them out. They let me post-date the check, but at that time it was legal. We're talking about 1990. I post-dated a check for 2 or 3 days until I know that I had to go to the bank. It might have been a Friday. I had to go to the bank on Monday. So the fine for digging a hole was $5,000. Now, had I taken out a tree along the coast without a permit, the fines would be as significant as digging a hole. The minimum fine they had was $5,000. So what I'm trying to say is that the people who were on these boats during the lockdown that tied ropes to the trees, if it was New York City Department of Environmental Protection or FUMP, which is the Florida Marine Patrol, the fine would be $5,000 or more to knock down a tree because of the rope. Here in the Philippines, they have no such laws. Now, one of the things that I am totally familiar with is environmental protection. Now, I said it in yesterday's live stream. I have been in, for different reasons than you could comprehend, but I have been in underground sewage treatment plants that would take you 20 minutes to walk from one side to the other, that are 3 and 4 stories below the surface of the street, double 2 stories high below the street, and then another 2 stories down with 20-foot ceilings. Okay? And that's the equipment rooms, the paddle rooms, the sludge processing rooms. They have a whole room set up for chemical rooms, things like that. They have such stringent rules and such strong environmental protection policies in place that people don't break the law. They don't knock trees down. They don't leave the boat on shore to destroy mangroves. But here they have no such rules. Now, the reason I mention the sewage treatment plants is because when I moved to the Philippines in 2014, when I moved to Bohol, there was a live reef from where I lived by Blue Water Hotel all the way to Alona Beach. The reef went from Dragon Head, Bohol, all the way to Alona Beach. And it was a live reef with fan coral, brain coral, many black frogfish, different species of fish, yellowtail, different moray eels, things like that, because it was a live reef. Alona Beach was always a known beach, but you could walk around in Bohol in 2014. You could walk around in the year 2014 and literally put your lawn chair on the path that goes from the main road in Alona Beach down to Alona Beach itself, and maybe in off season no car would ever go around you. Not even one car would pass you during the course of the day, because that's how slow the tourist season was in Alona Beach in off season. Now, I got here in March 16th. Off season was the end of July and August and September, because people are getting ready to go back to school. There'd be no traffic in Alona Beach. There'd be nobody in Alona Beach at all. Nothing. Nobody in a food store, nobody in a restaurant. The bars would have some people, because bars are bars, but as far as tourists, nothing. Now it's so crowded you can't pitch a blanket on the beach. But this is my point about the environmental protection. So it used to have a live reef in Alona Beach. It was full of all the natural corals to the Philippines, all. Now, in 2 years ago, on my 65th birthday, 2.5 years ago, there was an advertisement to go diving, Balikasag Beach, diving. Okay, so Balikasag is a beautiful island with a really, really, really nice live coral reef. Much better than Alona Beach ever could be, because Balikasag Island has fresh flowing ocean water current, constant current at 1 knot, 3/4 of a knot, knot and a half current flowing over the reef. It's just a magnificent dive spot. Alona Beach just has a slight current, a drift more than a current, but it also has the affluence from all the hotels that have been built there since the 1960s, let's say. So the affluence, even though it was a live reef, kept it from being a magnificent reef. It was a live reef, and it was really nice. Now, from all the hotels they built there, well, let me digress for a minute. In 2014, there was an article stating that Pang Lao, within their goal was to increase rental units by 10,000 rental units in 5 years. So from 2014 to 2020, they wanted to increase 10,000 more units in Pang Lao. But most of them on the beach here in Dolho, but also Alona Beach, Momo Beach, Dumaluman Beach, and they did. Now that goal has been reached. There are now closer to 15,000 more units. The problem is that when they increased all those units on Alona Beach, septic water, septic treatment, septic tanks, septic disposal, none, zero rules for that. So the water would go into the septic system of the hotel, and what the hotels did is they dug a trench down about 3 feet deep from the hotel out to the reef, which is about 200 feet offshore. That's it. Because after the reef, it drops down to 60 feet. And they took that pipe from the hotel and brought it up to about where the reef is, and the effluents from the hotel just went out of a pipe. So that would be like flushing your toilet into your pool. If the reef is dead now, there's no life on the reef at all, nothing. There's sandworms, there's no moray eels, there's no yellow jack, no yellowfin tuna, there's no groupers, there's no life on the reef. There's no fan coral, there's no brain coral, there's nothing. When I went there 2.5 years ago, there was nothing. The reef was dead. But I wasn't supposed to go to that reef. I was supposed to go to Balikasag. So when I got to the dive boat, the tour said that Balikasag Island. And when 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 I paid and everything, they said, well, our first dive is going to be a reef dive off Alona Beach. Now, I could have swam out to there. I could have swam out to the reef. It's only 200 feet offshore. I could have swam there. It's only 12 feet of water. So I did it anyway because I wanted to dive on my birthday. That's what I like to do. So I did it, and I realized that the reef is dead. So that's part of today's show. To tell you that the reef at Alona Beach is dead. It's gone. There's no reef. There's no coral. There's no coral snakes. There's no moray eels. There's no crabs. There's no lobsters. There's no frogfish. There's no yellowtail snapper. There's nothing. It's a dead reef because there's no environmental control at all here in the Philippines on the island of Bohol. None. Zero. So, in 2006, 15 or 16, about a year and a half after I moved here, they said they were going to mandatory have the hotels put in proper sewage treatment plants. They never did that. They made them put in a holding tank, but they never made it an environmentally friendly discharge. So the plants that I have been in New York City, whose billions of dollars of chemicals and machinery, when the water comes out of those plants, you can literally, if you wanted to, take a glass of that water and drink it. It's supposed to be safe. But they spent billions of dollars to protect what small amount of environment we have left around the city area. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to go in the water. Okay, you would. In other words, if they didn't have sewage treatment plants, you couldn't swim in the Harlem River, or you could the Hudson River. You couldn't swim in the East River. You couldn't swim in the Atlantic Ocean. You couldn't swim at Jones's Beach. You couldn't swim at all, period, anywhere, if there was no sewage treatment plants. So, by the year 2016, all swimming in Alona Beach was said not allowed, or swim at your own risk. So, that's what I swam in on my 65th birthday. You could waive your right to go in the water, but on any given day, in going back to 2015, on any given day, the fecal matter in the water was enough to stop people from going in the water or warn them, don't go in the water. Now, in Cebu City, Lapu-Lapu, when I lived there, when I went to Lapu-Lapu to the CGI Hotel and the Estaca Bay Arm and a Leg Hotel, Costa Bella, Costin Arm and a Leg. Hello, LaRue. Thank you for stopping by. I hope your day is going well. I got a kick out of you taking pictures of the plants behind your house. That was very nice yesterday. Yeah, that was pretty. That's nice greenery back there. So the LaRue is a blogger. If you want to see a Filipina blogger woman, go to LaRue's channel, LaRue Segrest, and she has about 800 videos of the Philippines, but she speaks English, so you're welcome to go there. If I have a wrench and you want to get LaRue's URL and put it out there, that'd be nice. Thank you. So, on 2005, thank you, if anybody has a wrench. If not, I'll take a break in a minute and get it out there for you, LaRue. So, if in 2015 you wanted to go in the water at Alona Beach, you could. Where I live here, the water was clean. Where I live here now, the water is clean. But in 2015, Alona Beach, they said swim at your own risk. Cebu, Lapu-Lapu City, don't swim in the water. The advisory was the water is not safe to swim in, period. But they didn't stop you from swimming. They just said it's, and they had a fecal count every day. Somebody did a fecal count in the water. Now in Cebu Harbor, now it's just toxic. Now, I mean, there's no regulations here in the Philippines, none at all. You might have the city of Cebu, the effluents go out of the buildings, 10, 12, 15, 20-story buildings. They go into a pipe that goes under the ground, and the pipe empties out into what is called a river, and the river goes past the immigration office straight into Cebu Harbor with no treatment at all. So if you were to put a handy wipe into flush it down into your toilet, that's going to go straight through the pipe into Cebu Harbor. There's no masticator or thrasher or screen, nothing. And there's no chemicals, nothing. There's just all those, anything you put in the drainage system goes straight into Cebu Harbor. And we're talking about a 25-foot wide river, 2 feet high, flowing water. It looks like a river, but it's just sewerage. It's not water, it's sewerage. It may have been a river that they just put all these pipes into, and all the effluents from all of Cebu City goes right into the river. Well, what was once a river 200 years ago, now it just goes straight into the Cebu Harbor. So there is no environmental impact personnel to give you a fine anywhere that I know of in the Philippines. So now, in Alona Beach, I don't know what the fecal count is today. It varies. Some days it's okay to go swimming. Most days it's not. But people still go swimming. They don't know the difference. And I was a septic tank contractor for my whole existence in Florida, from 95 to 13. So what is that, 18 years? I stood in sewerage sometimes up to my waist. Thank you, Dennis Adam. And I shoveled it out of the tank, and we pumped it out where we could, and then we got into the tank with buckets and shovels. Okay, so is it going to kill you? Probably not. Are you going to get an infection from it? Probably not. But because I did that, just go in the tank and shovel out the solids. Now, if that was your job, that's what you did. Okay? That's what you got paid to do, that kind of stuff. We got paid $7, $8 more an hour than regular wages. So I was making, to do that work in 1997, 98, I was making $15 an hour cash. And I was making whatever it was, $19 an hour on the books. So I was taking home $600 a week for a 40-hour week. And that's what you did. Now, so is the fecal matter here going to make a person sick? Probably not. But it kills the reef. It killed the reef in Alona Beach. Gone. The reef is gone. There's no life on the reef. It killed the Environmental Protection Park to the west, to the east of Alona Beach is about 2,000 feet long, and it comes off the cliff at about 200 feet away from the cliff and 2,000 feet. It was a live coral reef, natural nature preserve. It's buoyed off. It's got buoys all around it. No boating, no jet skis, stuff like that. In that, it's dead. There's nothing. It's sand. It's sand, and the coral rocks that were there with live coral. It's just coral rocks with no life and sand. Nothing. Not even one little teeny piece of coral, because the way the affluents go from Alona Beach is from west to east. Yes, west to east. And nothing is alive from Alona Beach, and nothing is alive east of Alona Beach in the environmental preserve. And if you go there now, the buoys are still there, well, they were last year, but there's no life. There's not. I swam there 2 years ago with my friend Carl, the fella. He's a tree surgeon. Him and I swam. There was no life at all. That was when the woman hit me with the jet ski. That there was nothing on the reef at all. No coral known, or on Alona Beach, or the natural preserve. So because they put a sign up, natural coral preserve, didn't stop the contaminated water from destroying the reef. And that's the problem here in the Philippines. There's no impact studies. They put out buoys about 4 years ago, before the lockdown. You can't go from my house straight out into the ocean 300 feet out, and at least 2,500 feet, 2,000 feet towards the west. They put out buoys. No boats, no fishing, no hunting, nothing. Zero. Nobody ever paid attention to that. And at night, you'd see 20 boats in there fishing at night. But now, the buoys are gone, and whatever the reason was that they put up, made it an environmental protected area, they don't do that anymore. So my point is that the reefs that we have now that are still alive around between my house and the Bellevue, that's a live reef. It won't be alive in 5 years from now. It won't be. And that's sad. The reef at Balikasog Island, no matter how careful the divers are, there won't be sewage there. Although now they are building many houses on the island to house tourists. Many, not but they only just dig a hole in the dirt. There's no tanks. There's no septic tanks. There's no hole. They just dig a hole in the dirt. They put a 55-gallon drum, plastic drum with holes in it, and they put a toilet bowl on top of that in sand. And the tourists that use the little restaurants and stay there at night, if they want to stay on the island, have that experience, they just do their business in a drum with holes in it that just goes into the sand, and then it goes through the sand and straight into the ocean. Just that little bit from those 1,000 people a day on the island will kill the reef. The reef is gone. It's just a question of how long it takes to go. They now have 30 or 40 places you could stay at night. They're bringing to the island, they bring a boat twice a day with 100 tanks. So it's 200 tanks a day they're bringing to the island. Because you could go to the island, stay on the island, and then dive during the day. So they're bringing about anywhere from 100 to 200 tanks a day just for the people on the island.
And then
they're never,
I'll look at the chat.
The Philippines, in regards to environmental protection, there is none at all, and there has not been any. And when they did really clamp down on hotels, they even shut hotels down in 2015. If they just had a pipe running into the ocean, they shut it down. Then they made them put a tank on the property, like a holding tank. But in the holding tank, and they were supposed to treat the water with I don't know, chlorine or something. They never did it. They just put it in a tank. They built a tank, and then when no one was around, they just dumped the tank out into the ocean. They never cleaned anything. They never processed any effluents. Nothing. They did nothing. And so since 2015, the reef died. And there's no way to bring the reef back. 2 years of a lockdown and no scuba at all, then make a difference. To get that reef back to the way it was, you'd have to remove people from the island of Bohol for about 40 years to get that reef back to the way it was, if it ever came back. Because the suntan lotion that the people wear during the swim comes off the person in the form of oil, goes to the top in the form of a slick, dust lands on the oil, and then that goes onto the reef and covers the reef with oil. So we're talking, even during the 2-year lockdown, nothing new was growing. So 2 years, there was no people and nobody in the hotels. There was nobody in the hotels at all. Nothing. Zero. 150-room hotel like the Hennon, and the staff was there to make sure no one, robbed the hotel linen, whatever. So they're just, the Philippines, as beautiful as the reefs are or were, is going to allow the reefs to be destroyed. Not going to do anything about it because the people need to have that income. So in that regards, the people are finally being able to buy enough food and pay enough money to have a light bulb in their house. They're not going to stop building. They're building 300 rooms about a quarter of a mile from me. They're going to build another 75 rooms about 1,000 feet from me. They're going to build 1,800 rooms to the east of me. 1,800. 1,800. They're going to build 200 right next door. That's 2,000 rooms to the left and right of me within 300 feet. So it's not going to stop. And I doubt very much that even the bigger hotels are going to have a septic treatment tank, because it just costs a lot of money. You're talking about millions of dollars to treat 30 rooms of a hotel. Maybe $1 million in chemical tanks themselves, paddles, sludge removal equipment, paddles, gears, electric motors. Maybe $1 million to treat 30 rooms. They're not going to do it. And that's all I got. I think I'm going to say goodbye. I wish it was sunny. Bill says we have an oyster farm in Australia. Go down from hepatitis B leaching through. Oh, yeah. Well, those certain... Another thing that's killing the reefs, Bill brought up a good topic, is that there are what they call forever chemicals. For instance, when you take an antibiotic, a portion of that kills the bacteria in your stomach or wherever in your body, but a large portion of that goes through you and out of you, and that's a forever chemical. and then it goes into the environment. Things, all different kinds of chemicals, soaps, some of the chemicals that makes up clothes soap is a forever chemical. Different types of chemical washes that you use to wash down a car at a car wash, that goes into the pipes, into the ocean. It doesn't break down for hundreds of years or thousands of years. So they're not with no environmental protection at all in the Philippines. That just means everything that associated with reefs and life, even Balikasog Island, which is in the middle of the darn ocean, is going to die. It's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. It's not going to not happen. All right, let me check the comments once again. Let's see what we got here. Who do we have here harassing now? My videos. We did have some trolling going on. I don't know why, but I did. Yeah, I don't understand that trolling thing at all. And he will, of course, have to go. Let me go back up there and get rid of him now. Okay, Planet Hollywood, hide user on this channel. I'll tell you what, let's just go to his channel. Why would you come to my channel and troll me knowing that it's not going to work out? Why would they do that? I don't know. I still don't get the 2 years. He's got no videos, and he's got 127 views in 2 years. We don't need his opinion on my channel. I don't understand it. So, Planet Hollywood. Let's go back here. Goodbye, Planet Hollywood. Any more? Let's hide that user. Okay. Just that one. We're eliminating the trolls one at a time, every day. So, that's it. That's what I got for today. I don't really have much else. If someone has a question, if someone doesn't believe that that I had all these licenses to do this type of work, ask me a question and I'll give you the regulation in Florida or New York. In Florida, I tell you what, how strict was the law in Florida? Even stricter than New York. If you were to take a snips, like a handheld snips, and there was a what they call mangroves, 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 behind your house. Your house, you buy the house and there's mangroves on your property, and they grow like weeds. Okay, Bill, thank you. They grow like weeds, the mangroves. They grow fast, and they grow, oh, they're really, really durable trees. They protect the reefs that they're on from storms, because you get a 200-mile-an-hour wind whipping through a mangrove. If the dive boats knew we were going to get a 150-mile-an-hour wind, they would just take their boat and ram it right into the mangroves and tie it off front and back and sides, because the mangroves act like a canopy or a tent around it, and the wind goes over the mangroves. It probably does some damage, but it doesn't. It might even sink the boat, but it doesn't destroy the boat. So if you just take a snip and snip the mangroves behind your house, you're looking at $10,000 for a fine. Cut them down with a chainsaw, $50,000, $100,000, $100,000. And if you don't pay it, they just put a lien on your house. So they have really stringent rules in America for cutting down protected species. Here they have none of that. None. They have rules, The only rule I know of that might get somebody in trouble, like locals, they cut the trees down. They cut down hundreds of coconut trees on a beach behind my house in 2014 in Alona Beach. No permits. They never replaced a single tree. There were hundreds of trees. And what they did was the barangay captain or his brother or some politician opened up a lumberyard, and they needed coconut lumber, and they just cut down every coconut tree on the beach. Hundreds of them. Just one right after the other, day after day after day. For 3 months, they just cut trees down and made lumber out of it. And that was without a permit. So, and that was because either the politician or the barangay, somebody started a lumberyard and had no coconut lumber, and they had a political hook, and they just cut everything down. So now if you go to where I lived, next to the Blue Water Hotel, 85% of all the coconut trees are gone. There was hundreds of them. And literally a coconut tree every 20 feet for a half a mile. Now you might see a couple here and there. So, and that was all, apparently that was all legal. And if you ask somebody, who is this for? They would say, oh, don't worry about it. No permit. The trucks would come at night and pick up the wood. The trucks would come in the morning and drop off the men. It was like a business, but it was, so, and somebody started a lumberyard with the free lumber from the beach. That's true. All right, then, Dennis, thank you for stopping by, LaRue. Thank you. I'm going to shut this down. I got shopping some more drill bits. Bill said goodbye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. You should take every word I said seriously. If you are young, say in your 40s, and you're a diver or a snorkeler or a free diver, you should take this video and copy it. Save it, because in 10 years from right now, today, in 2033, the reef outside my house here in BOHOL Beach will be dead. It'll be a dead reef. Balikasog Island will be a dead reef. Everything from Dragon Head, BOHOL, from the tip of the island, pretty much 5 miles past Alona Beach and 5 miles past, well, right into the city. On this side, the Tagbilaran city is across the water. Everything from Dragon Head all the way 30 miles up the coast will be dead, because there's just that many people. It's what's going to happen. And there'll be no more live reefs at all in 10 years. Nothing. Zero. Hey, DNC, I'm trolling. Yes. I will guarantee you that if you copy this video and you're a diver and you go diving behind the Bellevue Hotel, which is really probably the nicest part of this reef, or if you're a free diver, right outside, right behind the Bellevue, they picked the nicest spot of the tip of the island. You go diving there now, in 10 years you go diving, the reef will be dead. It has to be, because they're building 500 rooms. 500 rooms just west of the Bellevue. Then you have the Bellevue, and then you have another 2,000 rooms that are going to be built between the Bellevue and 300 feet past my house to the east. So that's 2,000, 500 in the other place. 100 in another hotel, about 75 to 100 near the Moro Army. Yeah, there'll be no reef yet at all. Nothing. Now I don't know where there's another reef, where there's another live reef that you could go to. It would have to be out in the ocean somewhere, and I don't know that one exists right now. There are some. If you know a boat captain in Alona Beach, there's one reef that they only take the locals to. It's not exposed at low tide. You can't see it. But at low tide, there's only about 2 feet of water over the reef. There is a live reef somewhere near Alona Beach off the coast. But no commercial boats go there. Not now. Maybe later on, when there's no other place to go, they'll kill that one too. There won't be any reefs in Pang Lao in 10 years. That's the truth. All right, then. Thanks for watching, DNC. Thank you for stopping by. I think I'm going to shoot a mail off to you, DNC, and then nothing important, but I don't want to talk about it on YouTube. And I'll do that in about 3 minutes from now. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Ping Permy, which of course means take care always, from the Philippines, and Michael Fazio and Daisy May, soon to make a guest appearance. I'm Ping Permy from the Philippines, baby. Bye-bye for now.